Altheris, hello, welcome. Today I'd like to discuss with you the nature of power and control. As in this human life that we're creating for ourselves, there often seems to be a sense that no matter which way we turn, someone or something is seeking to influence us into doing something we don't necessarily want or even need to do. What is the nature of power and control, and why are we so subject to this experience?
Well, there are, as we have sometimes said before, two relatively opposite energies that are at play within the universe. There is that which is the universal energy, which is the expansiveness, and there is that which is, at this particular frequency, the ego energy, which is within the nature of being human or within the human being. And when you look at that aspect of humanity from an ego perspective, what occurs is, we have said sometimes before, that ego is designed to put strategies in place for the perpetuation or the survival of the human body in order that the universe can come through and have the experience of being human, but also through creativity understand what the expansiveness of humanity is, its possibilities. When you look at those people that do not connect with the expansiveness of the nature of themselves, being the universe, and that they are primarily concentrated within that which is the ego energy, then they are caught up in the need to survive. They are caught up in the need to put strategies in place for the survival of the physical body. And then what occurs from the ego perspective is that it realizes that it has a better chance of surviving if it is in partnership with somebody else or another ego, and there is a joint strategy. And as you ripple that out, as you collect in numbers, out of that collection or that magnetism of numbers arises the nature of power, the nature of control, because the more people that buy in to the methodology or the script or the strategy that you have designed as the central base for all people coming together, the better chance you individually have in surviving as the ego energy. And out of the power to bring people in to say, look, this is working, everybody is moving towards this as a way of being, come and join us. And what you do then is you spread that energy. So it's important for you to understand that the more people come together, the more power is generated both energetically and in the sense of direction in which those people are travelling. But in order to continue travelling in that direction, there of course needs to be control in terms of that which is the strategy that is working. So when people are beginning to move away, and you need to have them stay within the context of the strategy that you have created, then you can use the power. Then you can use the control from the ego perspective only to draw them back in, and you can use and create different ways of delivering that power and control, whether it is through money. That is one of the fundamental, we would say, reasons why money was created, as a power and control mechanism to keep people looking in a particular direction.
Could you give other examples? For example, within a relationship?
In terms of where there is a fragile ego within one person who is in the relationship, but there is a dominant ego within the other, then of course the dominant ego is the one that has created the strategy and seeks to draw that other person in who is vulnerable to that particular strategy. Now, it may not be that the person with the vulnerable ego desires to be part of that, but as you know, in terms of the primary emotions for humans is love and fear. And of course, there is a energy or a vortex of fear that the vulnerable person becomes caught in. And the person who has the greater ego, the more robust ego, understands that by putting out the energy of fear, then it continues to keep that person within the nature of the relationship. But as soon as love starts to emerge, whether it is from an external perspective or whether it is from within the heart of the vulnerable person, they come to realize that they are caught up in a process that is not for their highest good, as you might say. And so once they have that recognition, then that is when the framework of the power and control structure put in place by the person who is of the greater ego begins to crumble.
how can we help those vulnerable people gather that strength, that sense of self-love, I would imagine, in order to break free from this sort of self-perpetuating cycle that they get trapped in?
Well, there is two different aspects in terms of things that can be done. Of course, there is the external aspect where they can see what healthy relationships look like out there in the world, whether it is taught to them or whether it is shown to them or whether it is mirrored to them, so they can understand what is normal, if you like, from the perspective of how relationships should be and experienced. Or there is the internal aspect of getting to that point where you are in such fear that you begin to have what you might say is a meltdown or a crisis or an internal combustion. And through that, in terms of the nature of the metaphor of the phoenix rising, that is what occurs. There is the understanding and the awakening to what you are part of is not what is for your best good.
So sometimes actually hitting that place of rock bottom, if you like, where you are at the meltdown, you are having the crisis, can actually be the very vehicle that helps you to awaken and change your life completely.
Well, we have said, in terms of the nature of that which has the most impact on a particular individual is their own direct experience of what it is that they have created as their life. And if part of that creation is a crisis, and they have the experience of the crisis in relation to the relationship they are in, then that is the most powerful way to get them out of that. Of course, if you are being shown or taught by somebody else, you are only being shown or taught somebody else's experience. And that is, we would say, not a bad thing, because it is important to be able to have mirrored to you healthy relationships. But unless you have that direct experience of a healthy relationship, or you put yourself in the position of having that direct experience of a healthy relationship, then there is the potential for you to continue in the unhealthy relationship because you do not know what it is that you desire. You have nothing that you can gauge it against.
And yet, as you do begin to feel a sense of self-love and make the changes, a person really can totally transform their life, can't they?
Well, it can be simply by removing yourself from the energy field of the person that is holding you, using their power and control to keep you in place, that you then see life afresh. You then see different possibilities, because if you spend much of your time in that other person's energy, then you will become caught up in their way and their desire of how the relationship should be. This is what we would say to many people that are in relationship. If they wish to review the relationship that they are in, then to leave the energetic environment of whoever they are in relationship with. For instance, go away for a week and be without contact, be without or not within the energy field of that other person, and then begin to observe the nature of the feelings that come up, what the physical body says to you, whether it begins to recover and whether you begin to have thoughts or ideas of how the relationship can be different. That needs to be, we would say, in terms of a healthy relationship, be part of that in terms of looking and understanding and reviewing whether or not the relationship is for your highest good.
Perhaps you could go over that again, because that seems to me to be really important, because some people may not realise that they are victims within a relationship. What would be the biggest clues for somebody to understand that perhaps they are not loving themselves fully and they are not exploring their highest potential?
Again, you need to look at the emotions that arise whilst you are actually in that relationship. So, for instance, if guilt in terms of doing things for yourself arise, and that in fact you feel guilty that you are giving yourself something that is good for you, and you feel you should be giving it to somebody else or the person that you are in a relationship with at your own expense, then that is the biggest sign. Feeling guilty about looking after yourself. In terms of other things that you can look at it, if you look out into the external environment, people will tell you. If you look at people that you are in relationship but outside of the core relationship, their behaviour towards you will show you how you are on the inside. So if they are angry, then there is anger within you. And if you look at what that anger is about, it may reveal that you are angry about being in the relationship that you are in. So it is important to get a deeper understanding of the nature of body language, because the body will be the first thing that talks to you in terms of the nature of your consciousness and your ability to understand what it is saying. For instance, if you go out for what is an evening, and then you are experiencing reluctance to go home, then through that reluctance the body is saying it does not desire to be in the energetic environment. So you need to take notice of that.
I think that I agree. That can be hard for people to understand, because maybe they've made a vow of marriage, for example. What would your views on marriage be?
Well, marriage in terms of the nature of the universal context is meaningless. But at the human context, what it is in terms of understanding that you are joining together to create that which is a joint strategy of survival, that you are there to help one another, that you are there to love one another, that you are there to show each other what it is to be in a healthy relationship. When you are moving away from that, you understand that whether it is a contract that you call it, or whether it is something that you have an agreement about, is not working because of the nature of how you are feeling and what your body is saying to you, then you can step away. What we would say in terms of ego and that which is marriage, it is a strategy of survival for you as an individual to come together. Of course, you create that which is love out of it, but what happens is you come together because you are the same vibrational frequency at that point in time.
At the time you come together.
At the time that you come together. But that does not mean that that vibrational frequency is sustainable for the entirety of your life. It could be for a week. It could be for several years. It could be for a lifetime, depending on the consciousness of that which are the two individuals within the relationship and how they are prepared to see one another. When you are looking at the nature of the word intimacy, as we have sometimes talked about, intimacy, how much are you prepared to allow somebody into you to see who you are? That is what is important.
So you as the universe wouldn't judge anyone stepping out of their marriage?
You would not judge anybody. In terms of being the universe does not judge. The only judge that would judge you moving out of your relationship as a marriage or whatever it is yourself first, primarily, but then also others that are around you. But it does not matter what others think unless you allow it to impact the nature of your way of being in the world.
One thing you were explaining is that you can get some clues by the way the environment speaks to you, the way that other people mirror your own inner emotions. For example, someone being angry. Presumably another way is the actual body will respond in a disease that manifests, or some kind of ailment that is again speaking to you about the actual issues that are going on that maybe you're not allowing yourself to see.
Well, it is all connected in terms of that which is the energy stream. The relationship itself, when you come together and you blend together, creates a particular energy. And whether or not that energy, the blend of the energy of the two of you, is conducive for your own individual well-being, will be reflected in the health of your body. So if you, for instance, before you go into a relationship, but you spend time with somebody, you get to experience the look and feel of the energy environment that is possible for the two of you. Sometimes it is obvious that it is not going to work because there is friction almost immediately. Sometimes the friction occurs after a week or after a month or after a year. But what occurs is the friction is felt within the physical body. And if nothing is done about the nature of the friction itself energetically will become embedded within the physical body of the person. If you ignore it, then what occurs is dis-ease. You are not at ease with whoever it is But you can override that with your thoughts and feelings that you have to be in relationship with somebody for a lifetime. That is possible. But it is the inner voice, it is the intuitive nature of what you sense and feel about your physical body which says to you the energy is flowing in this relationship or the energy is not flowing in this relationship. And if it is in that position where there is friction, where the energy is not flowing, you will feel that in the body. And if you do nothing about it, then the body itself will become unhealthy, because it is within the nature of the physical body to allow energy to flow freely.
So as you start to love yourself and move away from that relationship, what happens to the other person, the sort of the perpetrator of the power and control, if you like?
Well, what happens is that there is a detachment of their ability to control you. So what occurs is that they also go into crisis because there is a need within the nature of their ego to reattach that either to you or to somebody else. And that is the nature of how they perpetuate the power and control cycle, because they do not tend to look at the reasons why the relationship failed. They simply look for the next relationship to which they can then attach what it is that they need, what it is that they desire. So it is important for them also, if they are conscious enough, to look at what went wrong in that relationship. And of course, you can be out of relationship and still continue a healthy dialogue between two people as to what happened in the relationship and why it wasn't working and what your experience of it was.
So that person has the opportunity to evolve as a result of the separation. So it could be a real blessing for that person to have the spotlight shone in this way on their behaviour.
That is what we would say is the best way to exit. There is a way to exit relationships. It is not through power and control and trying not to let go of the power and control that you have. It is looking inside at what your own needs are and how they are manifesting outside and how you are getting those needs met. And if they are at the detriment, if somebody is saying to you, you are getting your needs met at the detriment of my energy, for instance, then it is for something for you to look at. If you choose to, it is there, as you say, presented to you. But you do not need to look at it, but it will occur again and again, and then it will occur again and again more frequently, such that in the end you cannot but look at what it is that is causing your relationships to fail.
And the goal would be to be within a healthy, balanced relationship where each partner loves themselves, loves the other, and that there is a mutual sharing, or how would you describe that relationship that's the healthiest type of relationship where there is no power and control? Is that possible?
That is possible. In terms of the two people looking independent of the relationship, then they do love themselves, they do trust themselves, they do understand what it is that it is their desire in life to achieve, where to go, what to do, how to be, and understanding the nature of their identity, the story of them, who they are, as well as what they are. So within the individual context of that, each individual should be in that place. That is the most healthy position for an individual to come into a relationship. However, there are many people on this planet that are not in that place. That does not mean that the relationships will not work. What it means is that when there are two people in a relationship who are not in that position of loving themselves and understanding what it is that they desire, but if there is a consciousness there and an agreement to work together, to open each other's heart, to see into the other person, to accept and surrender to everything that they are, and to work on the nature of their vibrational frequency, their level of consciousness, then there is a smoother flow of the energy between the two hearts. And that is entirely possible as well. But it is the fundamental basis of being open, being honest, being trusting, and being in love. Allowing love into the relationship and having a full understanding of what love is.
It certainly provides us with an incredible opportunity to learn more about ourselves and the nature of being human. Thank you, Altheris.
You're welcome.